You know what nobody wants to admit? Real life is exposing modern women in a way filters, quotes, and self-love captions can't hide anymore. Scroll for 5 minutes and you'll see it. Women crying in their cars because they had to take a sick kid to the doctor alone. Women breaking down in the supermarket because groceries and daycare cost too much. Women filming themselves in messy apartments saying, "I can't do this, it's too hard." These aren't rare moments. This is becoming the default storyline. And here's the brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. Real life doesn't care about empowerment slogans, independence speeches, or "I don't need a man" energy. Reality doesn't bend for your feelings, it only responds to competence. For years they were sold a fantasy. Leave the boring stable guy. Leave the structure. Leave the discipline. Leave the man who quietly made everything work in the background. Follow your heart. Choose yourself. You deserve more. So she walks. She leaves a good man because she's not happy. She has kids with men who never wanted commitment because she's strong and independent and doesn't need a father for them, just a donor. She chooses the party phase over the build a life phase because responsibility can wait, fun can't. And then, slowly at first, then all at once, reality knocks. Suddenly, that freedom she screamed about on Instagram doesn't feel like freedom, it feels like drowning with nobody coming to pull her out. The bills show up on time every month. The rent doesn't care she's tired. The kids don't care she's overstimulated. The car doesn't care about her anxiety when it breaks down at night. The landlord doesn't care about her feelings when the pipes burst. Life doesn't pause because she wants to heal. I watched this play out with a woman I know. Married to a decent guy. Nothing crazy, nothing dramatic. He worked, paid the bills, helped with the kids, fixed the small things, handled the boring background problems she never even knew were problems. But she was unfulfilled. She wanted to find herself. She felt trapped. So she left. First 3 months, new apartment, fresh haircut, nights out, pictures with wine glasses, quotes about starting over and choosing peace. You know the script. 6 months later, videos of her in the car with messy hair and red eyes, whispering into the camera so the kids don't hear her crying. She's exhausted. The car needs fixing and she has no idea who to call or what to ask. The kid's sick at 2 a.m. and there's nobody to take shifts with. She's working, paying rent, doing school runs, doing laundry, cooking, cleaning, scheduling, dealing with paperwork, dealing with teachers, and trying not to fall apart. That "I don't need a man" speech turned into "Why is nobody helping me?" That "I choose freedom" moment turned into "I'm so overwhelmed I can't breathe." The responsibilities that looked small when someone else carried them suddenly feel massive when they're on her shoulders alone. Grocery shopping with 3 kids while one is screaming. Driving across town after work because the school called. Dragging heavy boxes up the stairs when she has to move. Arguing with a mechanic who talks down to her. Dealing with a landlord who doesn't care. Being sick herself but still having to get up, cook, clean, and function because there is no one else. These are not extraordinary life crises. This is Tuesday for an adult. But when there's no structure, no support, no second pair of hands, Tuesday becomes a mountain she can't climb. Nobody told her the truth about independence. They told her independence is freedom. What they didn't tell her is independence means when you're shaking with fever, you still have to get your kids to school. Independence means when you're emotionally broken, dinner still has to be cooked. Independence means when the basement floods at midnight, you are the one on the floor with a bucket, not a man you can call from the other room. A man I worked with told me about that exact moment. His ex-wife was the "I don't need you, I need my independence" type. Left him, moved out with the kids, started her new life. 3 months later, his phone rings at 11:45 p.m. She's hysterical. Basement flooding, kids crying, water everywhere. She doesn't know where the shutoff valve is, doesn't know who to call, doesn't know what to do. The same woman who said, "I'll be fine without you," is now sobbing into the phone, begging him to come over and save the house she insisted she could manage alone. And, like most men, he went. He turned off the water, he calmed the kids, he fixed the immediate disaster. Then he went back to his empty place, while she went back online the next day to talk about how hard it is to be a single mom and how men don't understand how much women carry. Do you see the pattern? They chose the fun guy, not the stable guy. They chose vibes, not values. They chose attention over structure. They chose Instagram moments over actual foundations. Now they're crying in cars, crying in bathrooms, crying on TikTok. Not because life suddenly became harder than it's ever been, but because, for the first time in their lives, life is refusing to be edited, filtered, or emotionally negotiated. Real life doesn't care how empowered you feel, it only cares whether you're prepared. And most of them weren't prepared for anything beyond live your truth and follow your heart. Nobody taught them how to budget, how to handle stress without collapsing, how to problem solve instead of panic, how to build discipline instead of chasing dopamine. So now every normal responsibility feels like oppression. Every bad day feels like trauma. Instead of asking, "How do I get stronger?" they ask, "Why isn't anyone rescuing me?" Instead of thinking, "How do I fix this?" they reach for the front camera, hit record, and turn their pain into content. And here's the darkest part. The internet rewards it. Post a meltdown, get likes, sympathy, maybe donations. Post stability, quiet responsibility, no drama, and nobody cares. So breakdown becomes a strategy, not a moment, not a lesson, a currency. Meanwhile, somewhere a single dad is doing the exact same thing, working, cooking, cleaning, raising kids, exhausted, with no camera, no audience, and no one calling him brave. He's not special, he's just an adult. That's the difference. Modern women were promised a version of adulthood where everything is chosen, the fun, the freedom, the validation, but very little is earned. Now real life is cashing the check that fantasy wrote. And this is only the beginning of the story. Because when structure is gone, when discipline is gone, when male stability is removed from the home, it's not just the woman who collapses. The kids do too. The entire environment starts to rot from the inside out. If you think the crying in the car videos are bad, wait until you see what happens inside the house, inside the school, inside the minds of the children watching all of this. That's where the real damage starts. And that's where this story goes next. You know who pays first when a woman can't handle real life? Not her. The kids. People love to talk about strong single mothers, but nobody wants to zoom in on what's actually happening inside those homes when there's no structure, no discipline, no stability, just exhaustion, emotion, and chaos dressed up as doing my best. Teachers will tell you the truth if you ask them off the record. They see it every morning. Kids from these homes show up tired because nobody enforced bedtime, hungry because breakfast was chaos or skipped completely, unprepared because homework got lost somewhere between mom's breakdown and her scrolling on her phone to escape. Not because she doesn't love them, she does. But love without structure is chaos. Affection without discipline is neglect in slow motion. When there was a man in the house who took responsibility seriously, he wasn't just paying the bills. He was silently holding the frame. He was the one saying no, the one enforcing rules, the one making sure there was a plan, not just feelings. The one kids knew they couldn't manipulate with tears or tantrums the way they manipulate a mom who's guilty and exhausted. Take that away, and what's left? A mother who's overwhelmed, emotionally drained, terrified of being the bad guy, and so desperate for her kids to love her that she lets them get away with everything just to avoid more conflict. No bedtimes, just screens until they pass out. No consistent rules, just whatever she has the energy to enforce that day. No real consequences, just emotional outbursts. The result? Kids who outwardly look like free spirits and inwardly feel unsafe, ungrounded, and responsible for the mess around them. I've seen it in session over and over again. An 8-year-old boy talking like he's 40, trying to calm his mom down when she cries. A 10-year-old girl who makes dinner because mom's too tired. Siblings acting like co-parents instead of children. That's not maturity. That's childhood being stolen. Meanwhile, the same woman goes online and posts, "Being a mom is so hard, nobody understands what I go through." And thousands of comments flood in. "You're so strong. You're doing amazing. Men couldn't last one day in your shoes." Really? Because there are men in those shoes. Single fathers who work, cook, clean, do school runs, show up to meetings, fix things, enforce rules, and somehow they manage it without recording themselves sobbing into the camera for likes. They're not heroes, they're just adults. And that's the part that stings the most. Basic adulthood is now treated like a courageous act if a woman does it, and like a bare minimum expectation if a man does. You want a brutal example? Look at how quickly struggling women get validation, and how quickly struggling men get mocked. A woman posting about being broke with 3 kids. Comments: "You're a warrior. Men are trash for not helping. Drop your Cash App." A man posting about barely making it while paying child support and trying to see his kids. Comments: "Be a man. Stop whining. Work harder." We built a system where female struggle is a currency and male struggle is a weakness. And now we're surprised that so many women lean into the role of overwhelmed victim instead of stepping into the role of capable adult? Nobody forced them to see life this way. They were rewarded for it. Instead of asking, "How can I become stronger?" they ask, "Why won't everyone help me more?" Instead of developing skills, they develop narratives. "I'm oppressed. I'm alone. No one supports me." What they never say out loud is this: "I made reckless choices. I walked away from stability. I refused discipline. I burned bridges. I ignored warnings. And now I'm paying the price." Because if they said that, the sympathy dries up, the donations slow down, the attention disappears. So the meltdown becomes a brand. The chaos becomes an identity. The phrase, "doing it all on my own," becomes both a complaint and a flex. Here's the part that almost nobody will say out loud. A lot of these women are not drowning because life is uniquely cruel to them. They're drowning because they rejected the very structure that would have kept them afloat. They picked excitement over security, short-term feelings over long-term stability, the "I deserve better" fantasy over the "this is hard but this works" reality. They thought leaving a boring, reliable man would unlock happiness. Instead, it unlocked every responsibility he was quietly carrying. And now, when it all hits at once, bills, kids, repairs, work, stress, they fold. Not because they're female, but because they were never trained for anything beyond self-expression and self-obsession. Look at their habits. No budget, no plan, no savings, no routine, no discipline. Money becomes a monthly emergency instead of something managed. Health becomes a problem only when it breaks down. Time becomes chaos because nothing is scheduled with intention. Every day is a reaction to problems they could have prevented weeks ago. And instead of admitting, "I never learned how to do this," they say, "The system is against me." Instead of saying, "I wasted money on useless things," they say, "Rent is too high." Instead of saying, "I chose the wrong man for my kid's father," they say, "Men never step up." Everywhere you look, there's the same allergy to accountability. The ex who doesn't help, but she chose him. The job that doesn't pay enough, but she never upgraded her skills. The family that won't babysit, but she spent years disrespecting them. The government that doesn't do enough, while already carrying her with benefits and support. There's always someone else to blame, except the one person who actually has the power to fix it. Her. And while she's screaming at the sky about how hard life is, the kids are quietly internalizing everything. They're learning that emotions are a weapon, breakdowns are communication, chaos is normal, men are optional, and responsibility is something you beg sympathy for, not something you develop strength to handle. Boys raised in this environment grow up either resenting women and refusing commitment, or becoming emotional shock absorbers who are easy to manipulate. Girls raised in this environment grow up thinking adulthood is one long panic attack, and that being strong just means surviving constant drama instead of avoiding it. You want to know why so many men are stepping back from relationships, from marriage, from becoming stepdads to this kind of chaos? Because they've watched this movie already. They've seen women trade stability for freedom, then demand a new man step in later and fix the life they destroyed, without getting the respect, loyalty, or authority that a real partner deserves. They want husband results, from a man they treat like a repair service, a wallet, and an emotional trash can. No wonder men are saying no. And here's the irony. The few women who can handle real life, who budget, plan, take responsibility, don't drown in drama, end up paying the price for all the ones who can't. Men meet them expecting meltdown energy, entitlement, emotional chaos. They approach them like ticking bombs, waiting for the breakdown, waiting for the victim narrative to appear. Functional women are sinking in the same dating pool, poisoned by dysfunctional ones. So when you see another video of a woman whisper crying in her car about how impossible everything is, understand, you're not just watching one person's bad day. You're watching the result of an entire culture that told women, "You don't need structure. You don't need a man. You don't need discipline. You don't need accountability." And now, when life demands all four, they discover something terrifying. No amount of empowerment quotes can replace actual competence. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. Modern women aren't collapsing because life suddenly got harder. They're collapsing because their illusions finally hit something immovable, reality. And reality doesn't negotiate. It doesn't bend for feelings. It doesn't pause because you're overwhelmed. It doesn't care that you're crying in your car with the front camera pointed at your face. It just keeps going. Bills still come. Kids still need care. The world still expects functioning adults. And when a generation was raised to believe that adulthood should be comfortable, fun, liberating, empowering, and filled with endless support no matter what they do, it's no surprise that real life hits them like a brick wall. Because somewhere along the way, they confused freedom with lack of responsibility, independence with avoidance of accountability, self-love with self-indulgence, and empowerment with victimhood. Look at the social media culture they marinate in every day. A woman struggling with basic chores? Queen, you're doing amazing. A woman crying because she overspent on nails and can't afford rent? Girl, the system is failing you. A woman who left a good man, good father, good home because she was finding herself? Proud of you for choosing you. Accountability? Not even in the room. But here's the darkest part. Social media doesn't just comfort dysfunction, it rewards it. The moment she posts a meltdown, she gets validation, sympathy, attention, engagement, sometimes even money. She learns quickly that broadcasting failure pays better than fixing it. Why improve your finances when you can cry about them and get donations? Why become more disciplined when emotional breakdowns get more support than responsibility ever will? Why grow up when the internet lets you stay a child with a camera and an audience? They learned something dangerous. Struggle gets applause. Drama gets views. Victimhood gets currency. Meanwhile, real life keeps piling up behind them like a debt they refuse to acknowledge. And when the consequences finally catch up, they don't fix the issue, they make another video. But here's where it gets even worse. These women want men to step in and rescue them, without giving men any of the commitment, loyalty, respect, or stability that used to make rescue meaningful. They want a man to fix the car, a man to repair the sink, a man to pick up the kids, a man to calm the chaos, a man to shoulder the responsibilities they dropped, but they don't want to actually be with that man. They want his utility, not his partnership, his effort, not his leadership, his problem-solving, not his authority, his commitment, not their reciprocity. I know a woman who calls her ex for everything: fix the faucet, assemble the furniture, change the tires, handle the paperwork. He shows up every time like a responsible man. But when he asked if they could rebuild the family, I can't lose my independence. Independence? She's outsourcing half her life to him like he's a free handyman service. This isn't independence, it's delusion covered with lip gloss and empowerment quotes. And you know who sees through it quickest? Men. Men are quietly opting out. Not because they hate women, not because they're broken, but because they've seen what modern womanhood often looks like: emotional chaos, financial irresponsibility, zero accountability, endless drama, and the expectation that a man will fix everything without receiving anything meaningful back. Men are tired of being blamed for everything and needed for everything at the same time. They are tired of being told they are the problem while being asked to solve every problem. They are tired of carrying the responsibilities for people who collapse under the weight of the smallest inconvenience. And the result? Good men walk away faster than ever, not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. But what about the competent women, the ones who do handle life? They're drowning in the consequences too. Men approach them with suspicion, caution, fear of hidden chaos, fear of emotional meltdowns, fear of being used, fear of becoming another utility man. Strong women get punished for weak women's reputations. And the cycle deepens. Because the modern collapse isn't just affecting individuals, it's reshaping entire families, communities, and generations. Kids grow up watching their mothers crumble from basic tasks. They grow up thinking chaos is normal. They grow up thinking men are only needed when something breaks. They grow up with no discipline, no routines, no emotional regulation. And you know what happens next? Those kids turn into adults who are even less prepared than their mothers were. A generation raised by breakdowns instead of standards. A generation taught to react, not solve. A generation trained to be emotionally loud and practically useless. A generation that believes feelings override reality. This is how societies collapse, slowly, quietly through the erosion of personal responsibility. Modern women can handle expression, but they can't handle pressure. They can handle fame, but they can't handle failure. They can handle dopamine, but they can't handle discipline. And the more society pampers them, the weaker they become. But the most brutal truth, the one nobody wants to say out loud, life isn't getting easier for women. Life is exposing who was never prepared for it in the first place. And the cracks are widening every single year. What comes next is even harsher, because the collapse isn't stopping. It's scaling, it's spreading, and it's reaching places nobody expected. That's where this goes next. Here's the darkest part of all of this. The collapse we're seeing isn't temporary. It isn't a phase. And it isn't just a few unlucky women caught in bad situations. It's systemic, it's cultural, it's intentional. Modern society has created a generation of women who can decorate themselves, express themselves, market themselves, but cannot sustain themselves. And when real life finally demands strength instead of aesthetic, discipline instead of dopamine, responsibility instead of reassurance, everything falls apart. You can see the cracks everywhere if you look closely enough. Take the emotional fragility. Women today cry over problems our grandmothers handled without flinching. A flat tire, a long line at the DMV, a sick child, a demanding job, a stressful day. These aren't tragedies, they're Tuesday. But the moment something doesn't go their way, they fall into panic. Not because they're weak by nature, but because they were never taught how to be strong. Everything has been outsourced. Hard emotions to therapists, responsibility to men, validation to social media, blame to society, consequences to the government. They've been taught since childhood that feelings are sacred, discomfort is abuse, criticism is violence, and accountability is misogyny. So now, when real life finally arrives, they interpret normal stress as catastrophic injustice. But the biggest mistake modern women make is assuming that the world will absorb their chaos forever. It won't. Life is merciless to people who refuse to grow up, and reality eventually punishes emotional children pretending to be empowered adults. Because here's the truth. Life rewards competence, not complaints. Responsibility, not reactions. Discipline, not drama. Accountability, not attention-seeking. But modern women built their identities around the opposite. They crafted entire personalities from "I'm overwhelmed," "I'm tired," "Everyone let me down," "I deserve better," "I don't need a man, but I do need his help constantly." And when men stop showing up to clean up their mess, the meltdown becomes nuclear. They scream, "Where are all the good men?" But the truth is simple. Good men watched how you treated the last good man. They watched how you weaponized feelings, blamed him for everything, demanded everything, and offered nothing. They watched you say, "I don't need a man," right before calling one to fix the chaos you created. So good men walked away. Not because they hate women, but because they refuse to be emotional mules for people who collapse under normal life pressure. And here's where the cycle becomes generationally dangerous. These overwhelmed, unstructured, emotionally unstable women are raising kids who become even less prepared than they were. Kids who can't regulate emotions, can't handle responsibility, can't accept criticism, can't solve basic problems, can't cope with stress, can't stay disciplined. Kids who grow up watching their mother cry instead of cope, blame instead of improve, and collapse instead of lead. A society cannot survive when the next generation is less capable than the last. And that's exactly what's happening. Meanwhile, men, the very ones holding families, communities, and structure together, are being pushed out, demonized, dismissed, and told they're unnecessary. Until everything goes wrong. Then suddenly, the same women who shouted, "I don't need a man," quietly whisper, "Can someone please send help?" But here's the irony. Help isn't coming. Men are tired of being the villain, the solution, the provider, the punching bag, the father figure, the emotional support, the repairman, the wallet, the structure, all for someone who gives them nothing but stress in return. So they're tapping out. They're going their own way. They're building peaceful lives without chaos. They're choosing discipline, quiet, stability, instead of emotional hurricanes dressed as empowerment. And the women who can handle real life, they become rarer, more valuable, more respected, more sought after. Because men today aren't looking for beauty. Beauty is everywhere. They're looking for competence, accountability, emotional regulation, partnership instead of performance, stability instead of sympathy harvesting. Women who can handle life don't need to broadcast their struggle. They simply handle it. And because of that, men line up for them. But the majority? They're drowning in 6 inches of water while waiting for someone to rescue them, someone they spent years mocking, belittling, rejecting, and replacing with independence. And the harshest truth of all? Life didn't suddenly get harder. Modern women got softer. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, and now real life is exposing who they really are without the props, slogans, filters, and victim narratives. Real life doesn't care about empowerment quotes. Real life doesn't care about TikTok tears. Real life doesn't care about excuses, feelings, or who hurt you. Real life demands strength. And right now, strength is the one thing modern women were never taught to build. The collapse isn't surprising. The shocking part is that they're still pretending to be confused by it. They're not drowning because the water is deep. They're drowning because they refuse to stand up. And the men watching, the smart ones, the grounded ones, the disciplined ones, they're choosing carefully. Because the future doesn't belong to those who cry the loudest, but to those who handle reality the best. And right now, reality is separating the stable from the fragile, the competent from the chaotic, the prepared from the performative. The world is changing. Men are changing. And modern women, the ones clinging to fragility, drama, and victimhood, are being left behind by a reality they can no longer escape.